I'm Angela Kelly Robeck, host of the Empowered Principal Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast, where each week we talk about a free piece or two of technology that you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shanna Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology and instructional coach for my district.
And I'm her producer and husband, Fuzz Martin, and podcast editing is just the tip of the iceberg for my technical skills. Oh, yeah.
It was between that and your career just sunk. So
that's cold. It's colder than the Atlantic Ocean in December. What month was it?
It was April. That's why we're doing this in April.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, guess what?
What?
It's Titanic Week.
What are we talking about today, Shanna?
It's Titanic Week on the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast.
You are a Titanic nerd.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. And actually, I always thought it was always an interesting topic to me because I think it's an interesting topic to a lot of people. It is a highly engaging topic in schools, libraries, the kids are checking out books. But when I started teaching, especially history, then it turned into a whole nother beast because it's not just teaching about a ship that sunk in the ocean, but I can tie it into the class system. I can tie it into world history. I can tie it into law. I can tie it into, we tie it into science and weather. Mm-hmm. We tie it into so many different topics can be taught using the Titanic as your
North Star.
Kind of. Yeah. What's going to how you get the content to the kids because they are so interested in it. Mm-hmm. And the people and the celebrities. And I mean, as I teach middle school and 8th grade, can we watch the movie? I'm absolutely not. But we can watch a documentary on it. And they're oh, but then they're really engaged. And the engineering behind it. And we talk about the science of metals. It's insane how many different topics you can actually tie into with this one tragic event that happened in history. So we are talking about the Titanic,
which everybody knows happened in April of 1912.
In April of 1912.
Duh.
Yeah.
Duh.
So today will be a fun history lesson for you as well while we talk about these websites that we're going to talk about. So, yeah. Hi, everyone. So excited to talk about this today.
I knew you'd get fired up about this.
So it is episode 148. We are highlighting the Titanic. I'm not going to go through. I have so many resources on the Titanic, but a lot of it's if you go to YouTube and type in Titanic documentary and do something specific. So if you just as a search to help you searching, if you're teaching kids about Titanic, if you go to YouTube and it's not blocked at your school, you can go to TeacherTube if it is, and you search Titanic, but you want to hone it down to a specific concept about the Titanic, you can search Titanic documentary kids, Titanic documentary. And then you can do iceberg specific, cold weather mirages. You can search materials the ship is made from. You can search the discovery of the Titanic. You can search the artifacts that have been dug up from the Titanic. You can search survivors on the Titanic. You can search, people who passed from the Titanic. You can search famous people on the Titanic. And every single one of those searches will give you something that will give you specific documentaries, videos, content specific to those different parts of the Titanic.
Sure.
So you can search just Titanic, but you're going to come up with hundreds of, probably thousands of videos. But to search specific things for the content that you want to zone in on, you can do that on YouTube.
Cool.
So that's one of the starting points. And I teach the kids how to do that because they do an inquiry on this in my classroom. So we talk about if we're going to lurk for things, first you need to find real content that's created by National Geographic, the Smithsonian, actual places. And then if they're searching Dr. Robert Ballard, the guy who discovered the Titanic, find real people before you just start searching fan art, because there's so much fan art of the Titanic. So that's just something.
It's all just Jack on a door.
Yes.
No, he wasn't on the door.
He wasn't on the door. He was in the ocean.
Rose was on the door. Jack.
Are you going to do your whole bit?
Jack. Jack.
That's the whistle in the background.
Yeah, that's the whistle. We do that all the time whenever we bring up the Titanic. Just our little thing.
So let's talk about some actual websites that have information about the Titanic on them. So besides searching and finding books, print books too, there's a book that I use all the time. It's called Titanic Voices from Disaster. It is nonfiction. It is based on interviews of survivors of the book. It reads like fiction though, so it reads like a story, but you hear about survivors, like quotes from survivors, and they actually tell their story of what they experienced. So I use that as a chunk of teaching in my classroom. But the website that we probably use most often, that I have my kids use the most often, and it is their favorite website to use because it is all things Titanic in one spot. It is called Encyclopedia Titanica.org.
Okay, so kind of like Encyclopedia Britannica,
Correct.
But it's Titanica.
Yes.
Nice, clever.
Yes.
Kudos, extra points to them.
So Encyclopedia-Titanica.org.
Nice.
And it has everything you could possibly ever want or need to know or research the Titanic with. So let's talk about the site. It does have ads, just be aware.
Yep.
But homepage. General questions and answers about the Titanic. What do you want to know? We'll give you some general, people pose questions. Okay. Not your best set of information, but they do have a question and answer section. On this day, you can click on it and see events from today. And you can see specific things that were going on with newspapers, with people who were on the Titanic, and random things. So there's that random information about Encyclopedia Titanica and some background information. Okay, so the real things that you're going to want to look at across the top, we've got Titanic, people, deck plans, features are probably the best pieces to start with. You have facts about the RMS Titanic. Do you know, without Googling it, what RMS stands for?
Royal Majesty's Ship.
Wrong.
Okay. Royal Majestic?
No.
Is the first word royal?
Yes.
All right. Marine?
Nope.
Mommy?
It's something the ship does.
Oh. Maiden?
Nope.
No.
There are other RMS ships out there.
Yeah. Ooh, wow. Okay. What does a ship do? More?
Nope. What does a ship do? This ship particularly, any RMS ship does that.
Mercantile?
It delivers
mattresses?
Mail.
Oh, okay.
It's
Royal
Mail ship.
Royal Mail ship.
Yep.
Okay.
So it can deliver mail.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Officially. It has a post office on it and everything. All right. So RMS Titanic. You got all the background questions. White Star Line, which is obviously the ship company that it's a part of.
It's like the carnival of that day, right?
Yeah, like Carnival Cruises, yes.
Yeah, okay.
They have the design of the ship, which you can go into specific, the deck plans, which we'll talk about in a second, through rescue, so you can click on it, and then it'll give you all kinds of information. It takes you to pictures and articles about Carpathia and things like that, and eyewitness testimony and different information you can pull up. So if you just go down Titanic Inquiries, Discovery and Salvage, you can click on that and they can learn more about, these are again, more articles and then also artifacts that have been dug up and more connections to it. So it's like a giant, basically it houses all kinds of information. If you go to people, this is what I use with most with my students. Because obviously there's over 2,000 passengers on the Titanic, and trying to sort through that, even if we read our books, you only can find so many things. We talk a lot about first, second, and third class and understanding how their experience was different and what that looked like at that time. And so you can click on passengers, and then there's a drop down, first class passengers. It will give you a full listing of those, a full comprehensive list of your first class passengers. And then what's cool, with each passenger, you have their age, their class, their ticket number, what their ticket cost, and when they joined the ship. So whether it was in Southampton or in Belfast or Cherbourg, France. And then it'll tell you if they went on a lifeboat, what number it was, and it will tell you, it'll give you an image of that person. And if you click on them, it gives you a short bio
Mhm.
of that person on the Titanic and then who else they're connected to, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So it's super cool because the kids are really into like, I want to know about this person, or tell me about the first class people, or tell me about the third class people, or tell me about second class. And so this is a great way if you want to create your own escape room, like you can link kids in and they can go through and like, you've seen it in museums, or a lot of times they do where you take a ticket and you follow a passenger through the Titanic.
Yeah.
To see if you like live or survive, or if you end up drowning or whatever.
Mhm.
You can create one of those just based on this information, which is really cool. And it'll give you different pieces of information about all of these different people. If you go under like third class passengers, you can sort that way. You also can sort by other passenger lists. So if they rode Belfast to Southampton, if they went Southampton to Cherbourg, Southampton to Queenstown, and then servants versus children. So they have the breakdown of the crew then. So like deck crew versus stewards versus orchestra versus the postal clerks versus the restaurant staff. And again, all you do is click on it. You get a list of these people and you get like their whole backstory of who they are, their age, their class, where they joined this journey, what their job was, if they made it on a lifeboat, what they looked like, who they're connected to. Like, it's amazing how much information is gathered here.
Mm-hmm.
And it will also break down by like victims versus survivors. And then it'll tell you if their body was recovered or not. And just so much information. So I have students go through and like they have to pick first class, second class, and third class and like, tell me about their experiences. And they get to pick and choose. And then they also have the deck plans of the ship. So next across, we use the blueprints a lot when referencing because the Titanic was ginormous, and trying to explain how people, like which rooms were where, and then when the ship is sinking, how the ship split in half, and then how like where that was on the ship, and trying to explain to them like it's not normal for a ship to split in half. So what was wrong with that? And then they can see that on the blueprints of the ship, so they can see the deck plans, and then it also breaks it down by deck. So not only do you just get like the general like blueprint of the ship, but then it'll also give you A through G deck, and then it'll show you all the different pieces. And what the blueprints of the ship look like. And you can zoom in on them and then go through the different ship plans if you want to. And students just have that as like a visual reference, which is really cool. They also have like features. So they have different pictures of looking at the Titanic. There's other articles, and there's like old video clips, which I think are super cool. And they're like black and white. You can see actual footage of the ship kind of floating and moving. And then they have construction and design. So they do have a lot of like, what do you want to call them? Like a question portals, I guess, or where people can pose a question and then be a part of a discussion, like a larger discussion on the Titanic. Those are available. That's just something to be aware of with students. If you want to, like most of it's just like Titanic discussion, but just be aware that there are discussion threads, I guess, on here. So something to think about. They also connect to other like mystery ships and things like that. So Encyclopedia Titanica has a huge amount of Titanic information for students to research, to pull up timelines of information, and have articles and videos and images and just all kinds of great discussion and all the pieces that go into this. Not just that the ship sunk in the ocean, but also how it connects to different communities and different countries and how that was handled from different leaders and things like that. Was just kind of interesting and cool. So this is a fantastic website for kids to go through. And I would say upper elementary, well, probably like 5th or 6th grade on up can use the site just because it's a lot of words. It's not a ton of visuals until you search the right thing that you're looking for.
Right.
So
I went and looked at victims and I just scrolled through and clicked on one random one, and I got John Jacob Astor, who was one of the richest men in the world who died on the Titanic.
He did.
Yeah. Founder of the Astoria Hotel. And I read all that story right on Encyclopedia Titanica.
Look at that. See?
Yeah.
Little background information. He's one of like the well-known people.
Yeah.
Very cool. So encyclopediatitanica.org is a great place to start for like student inquiry research, just random information you want to learn more about the Titanic. Everybody, the general information, Titanic kind of set sail April 10th, hit the iceberg on the 14th, sunk on the 15th. That's why I feel the need to share this with everyone because it's coming up. So if you need a lesson for a day or two, either coming to or from into spring break or state testing's coming out right now.
Yep.
This is a cool way to just get students engaged and some interesting discussion, and it's coming up around the corner. So there you go. So on with that though, the second site I have is it has great information about the Titanic, but also the website is just really cool and you can use it for other oceanic things. So the site is based on the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And
NOAA.
NOAA.
Yep.
Yeah. So their site does have some specific information for RMS Titanic history and significance. And I have my students use this based on, because we talk a lot about the weather, we make the connection in science class. So they actually learn about the weather in science class about the Titanic and what it was like to have a cold weather mirage, what that is. They talk about icebergs. They talk about Newton's law and how that connects with the Titanic hitting the iceberg and all of those pieces to it. But what's cool about this is this gives you Titanic specific information, but also it's going to give you all kinds of cool information about weather and science and things like that. So if you want to search it specifically, it's NOAA.gov. And then it's really long after it. It's like international section, RMS Titanic history and significance. Okay. But if you just type in NOAA.gov and search Titanic, you'll get there, which is probably the faster way to do it. So what's cool is they have this giant, like the history and significance, they go behind it. Then they have all these related links. So the Maritime Act of 1986, they talk about guidelines, they talk about the Titanic, they talk about documents and references and all kinds of stuff. But what else is cool about this website is on the left-hand side, you have all kinds of other cool resources to use in your classroom that are not even Titanic related, even though I use it for Titanic related stuff. So you have weather. And again, it's like this little blue bar. It's going to give you all kinds of information about the National Weather Service and how they're building like a weather-ready nation. And you can find all kinds of specific articles on weather and forecasts and things like that. They have a whole section on climate, which then will go through, shows you these really cool models and these cool coastal creatures and what these like satellite images are from space about like the Gulf of Mexico and all kinds of cool stuff. They have oceans and coasts, fisheries, which is really fun. If you go, the fisheries provide science-based conservation management, and they talk about fisheries, and they give you all kinds of background information. Again, articles, information. This is great to use in any class. You can tie these pieces in. They're like relevant. You can pull, like if you're going to use science class, great. But you can connect this to social studies class and writing and all kinds of things. Satellites. I love a good satellite image. They show all the different ways they use satellites and what you can see from. And again, more articles, information. Research, marine and aviation, charting, sanctuaries, and then more stuff on education. They have a whole education section. They have resources, they have opportunities, and they have news stories, student opportunities, educator opportunities, grants, all kinds of great information. Even if you're not teaching Titanic, this is a cool website to use in your classroom. Let your students explore it. You can explore it. But the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has a fantastic website of resources. You can go into history, check other historical events, not just the Titanic, and all different types of information and resources for educators. So NOAA.gov.
Yeah. Fun fact, if you ever hear of the National Weather Service, that's part of NOAA. So
there you go.
Yeah.
So all kinds of super cool, fun things, not just about the Titanic. But if you want to search the Titanic, they have great resources for that too.
Yes. Plenty of resources on that. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So we love a good Titanic resource. There's so many things, but Titanic is such an engaging topic for students. And it doesn't always just have to be like the history of what happened, but you can tie it into kind of any content area and connect it between content areas as well. And hopefully these fun little sites will engage your students and keep them plugging along here through end of third, fourth quarter, and moving on in the school year.
Getting closer.
Yeah. I'm just starting fourth quarter now.
Yeah. Oh, 9 weeks, right? Is that how that works?
Yeah. About that or so. Hooray.
Fun.
Yay. So thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you ever have any questions, you can find me on Twitter at SmartNWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed in this episode, visit smartnwi.com. If you'd like to support the show, please consider buying me a coffee or two. Visit buymeacoffee.com/smartnwi or visit smartnwi.com and click on that cute little purple coffee cup. Your donations help keep this show going. New episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate.
The ideas and opinions expressed on this podcast and the Smart NWI website are those of the author, Shanna Martin, and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technologies discussed on this podcast, please consult with your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that these tools will work for you as described, but we sure hope they do. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast.